Consumer expectations have never been higher. But with the evolving economic and competitive pressures, it's getting harder for brands to deliver the kind of consistent, compelling experiences that keep customers loyal. Can operations and facilities leaders find ways to meet these demands while growing their footprint and ultimately drive revenue? Let's find out. Welcome to Elevating Brick and Mortar, a show that discusses the crucial role that facilities, construction, and operations play in designing and delivering a compelling customer experience. Hello everyone, welcome to Season 3 of Elevating Brick and Mortar. Thank you for listening. I'm here today with Bill Yanek, CEO of ConnexFM. Bill, thank you for joining us.
Sid, really, I've been watching from afar your podcast for a while. I really appreciate the invite. I love it. I love being a guest, which is cool, and I loved working with you, certainly on the ConnexFM board and elsewhere, but today ought to be fun.
100%. I mean, we've been working closely for the past 3 years, and I've been looking forward to this conversation as well, officially on the podcast. So again, thank you for being here. And let's get started, right? For folks in our audience who might not be familiar with it, can you share some light into ConnexFM and what kind of organization you are?
Yeah, so ConnexFM is a trade association, 501c6. We have about 800 members. About a third of those are what you would call bricks and mortar, traditional retailer or retail-like entities, whether it's medical, whether it's technical and the like. And 2/3 are suppliers to those retailers, to those bricks and mortar organizations. And as we say, it's the suppliers are everything from the parking lot to the rooftop, everything in between. ConnexFM has a real interesting background we don't talk about enough. We're about to turn 30 next spring at our national conference, but 30 or so years ago, there was a company called Blockbuster, had a lot of separate facilities, and banded together with some other FMs, the unique nature, as your audience well knows, as you know, Sid, of multi-site facility management as opposed to office towers or hospitals or campuses. They formed what was called the Professional Retail Store Maintenance Association. Fast forward a few years, we rebranded to ConnexFM, about 2019, right before the world took a hiatus from business for a while. But 30-year-old organization. I've been the CEO since 2016. And I'm sure we'll dig into more of what ConnexFM's doing and what multi-site retail FM's as well, but it's great to be here.
Absolutely. So I want to dig more into ConnexFM in a bit, but before we do that, would love to dig into Bill Yanek and you and, what does your journey look like? How did you get here?
Yeah, well, it dates way back. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and both of us have matriculated at Texas to some degree out in the Midwest, but I went to West Point, United States Military Academy, and then I spent about 6 years in the Army. And after the military, I stayed in the reserves, the part-time military, but went to law school at University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. And then out of law school, I got into the association work. So I started lobbying for the Kansas Association of Realtors, the state association in beautiful Topeka, Kansas. Did that for a while, moved on to another association called the Glass Association of North America, the greatest material in the world, commercial architectural flat glass, did that for about 9 years, and then moved on to Prism back in 2016. And so I've been in the association space since about 2000, so now I am getting old, 24 or so years, and have been in association management more in particular since about 2007 in the glass industry, and with Prism and now ConnexFM.
What's been the best part of your role as CEO at Connex over the past few years?
Yeah, the best part, it's why I've stayed in association management. It's a little bit of a different, although there are tons of attorneys throughout association space, legal counsel. We have legal counsel at ConnexFM too, but to be able to lead an organization and also work with groups of people, and to be honest, too, not spend all your day behind a desk or in a library doing depositions or wherever the hell, or even in a courtroom to a certain degree. And we do advocacy even at ConnexFM to a great degree, but you won't be shocked by this, Sid, but I like to be with people, out amongst people, interacting with people, and the association space. That's what it's all about. It's all about you all, our members, and hopefully getting large groups of people going in the right direction. So never a dull moment. That's what I love about the association space. And you have to work for an organization. You have to believe in the issue. I often joke, I could not, I don't know, pick a particular team, the Philadelphia Eagle Association. I couldn't work for the Philadelphia Eagle Association because I don't support the Philadelphia sports teams at all. I'm just kidding with that. But retail facility management gets in your blood as you have it.
Yep.
I joked about glass being the greatest material in the world. It's the same thing, when you're defending a certain segment, and I love that about the association space.
What is ConnexFM's North Star? What kind of impact do you want to have on the industry?
Well, we had a interesting. So during my 7.5 or 8 years at ConnexFM Prism, we've gone through about 3 major strategic planning efforts, right? And an outside agency really helped us drill down what is ConnexFM all about. And it is about connecting suppliers with facility managers with their peers, supplier companies with their peers. It's that power of connection and engagement. That's what we are all about. And we do that at our events. We do it through our education, our resources. But at the end of the day, if we are connecting those 2 groups of folks or with their peers, then we are a success. If we aren't doing that, then we need to adjust. But that North Star, as you define it, is connecting facility managers and suppliers and vice versa.
What kind of persona, like within those organizations, usually is a member of Connex, and what are they hoping to get out of it?
I mentioned at the top, about 1/3 of our members are retail facility managers, and so we have everyone in there, mainly at the director to the VP level. Most are what we call FMs. Most are facility managers. We have some that are VPs of construction and the like, and we have some procurement professionals. But the heart and soul of ConnexFM on the FM side are facility managers. On the supplier side, it's a little bit different because we do have the gambit of the everything from a lot of CEOs, VPs and the like of the companies, and a lot of it depends on the size and the nature of their business and what they do. We have a tech council, but we have companies like ServiceChannel, very highly sophisticated technical companies too, and that's a whole different subset of our suppliers. That's a little different ecosystem, but we have those members as well.
That's great. Yeah, ServiceChannel and me personally, I've been part of the ConnexFM community for a while now. So for those in our audience who haven't heard of us, are not members yet, highly recommend. Bill, you've been at ConnexFM now for 7 or 8 years. Well, coming on an 8. Is there something that surprised you when you first entered the space, when you left the glass industry?
Well, I can tell you one thing that bled over. I didn't think we'd be doing as much when it comes to energy and energy management. In the glass industry, as you might guess, when you're dealing with the building envelope, you are dealing a lot with building codes and energy management. It didn't see as much of that at the beginning, but as we know, in our space, in the FM space now, energy is still key. Decarbonization is still an issue. Energy management systems is an issue. And so that was a little bit of surprising. I guess it was a little bit of a pleasant surprise because we don't do as much advocacy as I've done in the past where you're outright lobbying for something or even going in front of code hearings. It's a much different animal in that way. But those 2 links, and it probably makes sense because energy for everyone is a huge issue. And then learning about, how do we say this? Although I have to admit, I'm a little biased, but the whole news cycle around the retail apocalypse, I think, is much exaggerated. Sure. As your podcast is proof. But from the time I started at ConnexFM or Prism back in 2016, we've heard about this retail apocalypse, and there are challenges, of course. Even the causes of those challenges are varied as well. It's not necessarily all online. It's not necessarily all debt and all that. There's a bunch of different factors. But even post-COVID, when we are all ordering everything online, people want to shop in person. They want to go to bricks and mortar store, and that's good for both of us. It's good for ConnexFM. Right. But that's another pleasant surprise because we're going nowhere with bricks and mortar. It's going to be here, and it's a critical part of serving customers.
That's 100% right. I mean, what's interesting is there's this notion of looking at small changes in the market and then extrapolating that to be a trend, right? It's actually very good that a business looks at its location profile and a footprint and decides if they need to close some stores to have to optimize where they are and how profitable those locations are. If you don't do that, actually, it leads to unhealthy outcomes for the business that then, blows up. So when you do have a retailer who is on a continuous basis assessing their locations and saying, we know where we want to be and we know where we don't want to be and we're going to adjust, that's business, right? But there's this rhetoric that gets formed about, retail is dead, which just makes no sense. There's actually a supply shortage of great locations because there's demand for new locations to be built and there's not enough supply. And it's because retailers also see that even when there are locations near a consumer, brick and mortar locations, even if the consumer was to go and buy online, their average cart size is bigger because there's actually a correlation there because they actually feel more comfortable with the idea that they can just go and return something if they wanted to. So, brick and mortar is going nowhere. It'll change, it'll adapt. And I think that's one of the strongest, parts about our business, which is we are very resilient and we adapt to consumer demands, and that's not going to change, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting too. This harkens back to my previous life when you talked manufacturing, and it's a very similar dynamic where you read the dire, and of course we have manufacturing challenges as well, but manufacturing has evolved. We still manufacture in North America, in the United States, and it's kind of a similar battle that they're fighting in another way. It's not all doom and gloom, and certainly in the bricks and mortar space, and it makes all the sense in the world. Where do you put traditional shopping malls? They put them in very valuable real estate locations. And what it looks like is going to have to evolve. The shopping experience is going to have to evolve. But at the end of the day, they didn't put most of those malls in the middle of nowhere. They put them where customers are.
That's right.
So evolve the spaces and the customers will come back.
100% right. Let's talk about the built environment and facilities a little bit, right? I mean, facilities by nature can tend to be a reactive business, right? But it doesn't have to be. There are advancements in tech today that allow you to get ahead of it. And there are ways to make your assets and facilities smarter. What are your thoughts on smart facilities, and how far are we from making this, for having this be more ubiquitous?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff on the horizon, whether you talk about AI or energy management systems and the like, but a lot of disparate parts and disparate systems and not all integrated. And certainly that's the holy grail. If someone integrates all those parts, then they've got the multi-billion-dollar idea, and we all know them. But I am excited about the built environment and of course, integrating facilities into the built environment discussions from the beginning to the end. I mean, there's that continuum where you construct a facility, you maintain the facility, and you procure for the facility and there's too many disjointed areas in there. Our definite aim for ConnexFM, whether it's our tech council, whether it's other efforts with our retail council, and even the association writ large, is we want our FMs and our supplier partners as well to be part of that discussion in the built environment. And I don't think our members, because you mentioned about reactive, we're all firefighters, and I don't think, really, they don't have the time, but they think they are such a critical part of the built environment and ought to be involved in all those discussions. Sometimes we have more success than others, but as an association, that's something we want to do. And hopefully, now that we are going toward more and more smart facilities, that moniker and the like, we can help the FMs become part of that. Our FMs, we definitely have also a spectrum of facility managers. Some are at the very beginning level, and companies at the beginning level, technology-wise. Some are very sophisticated. But at a minimum, an FM in today's retail environment has to be conversant with technology.
That's right.
As the saying goes, like with AI, you don't have to be AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI probably is. That's right. That's right. That's the critical, and I think that's a role ConnexFM hopefully we can play moving forward.
Now you have councils within ConnexFM,
Yep.
and one of those councils is the Tech Council, right? That
Yes.
you're hoping to use that to kind of educate our members on what advancements exist and how to kind of better leverage it within our business. So, can you share a little bit more about the Tech Council and what they're trying to do there?
Yeah, well, I have to give a shout out to someone who you're familiar with. Tom Bioki was on a ConnexFM board a few years ago, and he was one of many that were in my ear talking about, yeah, we have CMMS providers, we have certain technology companies, but there was a whole ecosystem of technology-related companies in retail FM that weren't either members or certainly not engaged in ConnexFM. And there are different types of members, certainly different types of suppliers, even different types of FMs. And so we try to find, you can call them communities of interest or homes within ConnexFM for our various members. And technology is just that. And also when I mentioned that spectrum of, we've got members who are less sophisticated, maybe technology-wise, more sophisticated, and we need to serve both of those as well. But if we don't have a home in ConnexFM, now we do at the Tech Council, where we are at a minimum educating our members on what's happening technology-wise in the marketplace. But we're hopefully, to steal from your title, elevating the skill sets of our FMs and suppliers so that when we're in that built environment, we're in, and a lot of those discussions happen in Washington, D.C. They happen at ASHRAE. They happen at the International Code Council, that our members can participate and are leading the way because they're using those technologies and can be part of that discussion. We're really excited. The Tech Council is putting out, well, they're into future-proofing. They're into putting out white papers. And even on the not-too-distant horizon, we hope to, we've already had segments of our events that focus on smart facilities. And with any luck, when we go into 2025, we can look at maybe even having a separate standalone event that deals with smart facilities to really drill down on these issues and educate and have our, to elevate our members' thought processes and knowledge around smart facilities.
Bill, I always talk about how our industry has a little bit of a PR problem, right? I mean, we don't really do a great job about advertising the impact we have on, the consumer experience, the top line of the businesses that we serve. How does, in an environment like that, a facilities team go and build a case and talk about investing in smart assets and smart facilities? There are teams that struggle to just do some of the basics and get enough investment to get ahead of what they're already drowning in, right? So how does that happen? How does one get started on that journey? And as you talk to members who are either starting or in that journey, what commonality have you found in terms of what works to get attention from execs that are looking at, well, do I spend, X millions of dollars to make my assets smarter so I can be more proactive or have a predictive facilities program?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. And when you talk to our members offline, we, as you alluded to, they have a great story to tell. But if they spend all day, and they do, firefighting, when can you tell that proactive story? And then the other piece, and our Tech Council is doing some work on this, and at ConnexFM too, on that ROI for investment into FM. The C-suite does look at dollars, and unfortunately, when they look at cutting costs, facilities comes right in the headlight, right. Way too off early in the process. I think we can do a couple things. Well, one is a camera looking back at the CEO of ConnexFM. The industry associations ought to be helping our members tell that story.
That's right.
Because no matter how big the company is, it's that company's story, right? So if ServiceChannel is telling the story, well, yeah, it's ServiceChannel's story. If even a Walmart, the biggest company, right? Well, that's the Walmart story. So you need industry associations and even working with our other industry partners. You mentioned ICSC, IFMA, some other groups that we tend to work with. It's a long-term play. But I do think that if we can get our members into those forums and out of that firefighting mode, then you can make that progress. We had a great opportunity. I think it helped us a little bit. If there's any few things that were good that came out of the pandemic, of course, was that we heard how important facilities, how important HVAC was, how important sanitization and cleaning and all those things were. And we can't let that go. Everyone wants to forget about the few years ago. We can't let that go and continue to tell that story as we move forward. There'll be a next thing in which facilities will be so important. The other thing is to fight back against that narrative of the bricks and mortar apocalypse, right? And to tell that story, as everybody sees it. Nobody wants their whole life to shop online. I'm sorry, no one does. And maybe a few out there, Generation Z, but even they want to go to the coffee shop, or they want to go to the bookstore, or they want to go wherever it is. And we need to fight back against that lazy narrative that bricks and mortar is dead. You can't have bricks and mortar without FM, without facility managers, without those suppliers too. And so the two go hand in hand.
Yeah, 100% right. And what's interesting is that from what I understand, the data shows that it's the younger generations that are shopping more within, the physical environment.
Great point,
because they want the physical interaction. They want the human element. And so some of it is very is counterintuitive, because you might think that, I'd rather just buy something on my phone. But actually, the experiential part of buying is a big part of what today's consumer is looking for. And, this is where there are advancements in bringing the digital into the physical, right? You got the whole phygital idea, which is like you're in the space, but like, can you bring a digital experience to that space to just elevate the overall experience? So there's a lot of things being tried out. A lot is happening in our industry as a whole, right, Bill? Especially over the past 4 years, to your point. Are there any industry macro trends that stand out the most to you? And what correlations have you found between the built environment and the consumer trends, the economy, and how consumers are generally spending money today?
And I'll get to the consumer aspect of it, but one in particular, industry trends we're seeing is, and this I think will help us tell our case when we talk about a lack of labor in the skilled trades and developing that talent pipeline. And this is certainly something too that a trade association is uniquely positioned to help impact. So across the board, I also think you want to talk about an apocalypse, and I just went through it with my son who just graduated from college. I think there's a sea change in that everyone has to go to college and get a liberal arts degree, period. I think that is definitely, if I was running a university that only catered to the liberal arts right now, I'd be a little more nervous than if we're running a retail FM or a skilled trades association, because there's so much demand out there. Now back to the consumer part, I think you bring up a fascinating kind of dichotomy when you talk about, and we see it with young people, there's too much online living and engagement, but that can't last forever. So I think that helps that, and we mentioned ICSC, and I know they saw this too. The traditional malls that you and I grew up with are not going to meet the standard that our young consumers are setting. They are looking for an elevated experience. Some of it probably they were spoiled by seeing all these things online that look like the perfect utopia or whatever. And then they go in the store, they want to see it the same way. Does that help FM? Yes, if you can provide that. I think of where you're talking about what smart mirrors and all sorts of digital technology that can enhance. On Running comes to mind, where their philosophy of their facilities is they want it like an art studio or an art museum. And isn't that a wild way to look at running gear, footwear? But that is the standard that's being set out there. Well, FMs are the ones and the suppliers that are the ones that are going to make that happen to meet the customer experience. I guess if they don't get it, where do they go? Well, they stop shopping, maybe go back online. But there's a lot of, and we talked about technology can do it. There's a lot of really innovative ways that shopping can maybe deliver on those new consumer demands that are greater than ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, with regards to elevating the experience. I was, at Euroshop. That's a massive, massive show with, I think, over 95,000 people. And a lot of the focus there is technologies that kind of are not yet ubiquitous in our locations, in our stores, but can transform how consumers interact with the brands that they love. There were these kiosks that more like a shopping section, if you may, where you're buying wine. And usually if you think about the buying experience for wine, it's just wine bottle after wine bottle, and you just pick up whatever you want. And there's a chance that you might actually go onto your phone and look up the wine and see where it's from and so on. And they're trying to remove that friction. And so with smart sensors, if you know what bottle you picked up, there's screens right there that say, well, this is the bottle you picked up. And, the screen starts showing you where that bottle came from, the region, where the grapes were grown and harvested, and what kind of food it pairs with, and so on and so forth. And so now I'm not on my phone. I'm actually just getting educated and making a decision on the fly on the kind of wine I want. And so then it's not, do I want wine or not? It is which wine do I want, right? And so you kind of change how the consumer is interacting with your product. And so what that means is there's more stuff in the stores that can break, which means that facilities teams have to adapt and think about how are they going to not be the reason for a bad experience. Because can you imagine if you have all this tech in your stores, but then it breaks and then it's just lying there unused? That's worse than not having it in the first place, right? So facilities has to be part of the conversation. Facilities needs to stay ahead of it. I guess one wonders, are we at the table? Are we having the right conversations with the design teams or the technology teams to ensure that don't just build it and walk away? Let's make sure that we can actually service it after the fact as well, right?
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the wine store, and it's somebody that you and I have talked about in the past when you think about Gary Vee.
Yeah.
And someone who is, you want to talk about the art of retailing. And now, of course, he's in the marketing, but started with his dad's liquor store.
That's right.
And grew that exponentially. And he had the first email marketing list. And he has a new book out where he talks about this too. I think he calls it strategic organic content, but I'll expand that a little bit too. This whole individualization of the shopping experience is so important, and technology helps you do that. But the flip side of that is it better work, or you're not going to get those folks. And maybe our FMs can take a little lesson how they market what FMs do it, right? They can segment what their mission is and reach out to, whether it's C-suite or potential clients or current existing clients, with a more individualized message rather than the store just needs to be clean, or the store needs to be, or the lights need to work. Well, now you're getting into very individualized and highly technical, and that's a huge opportunity too, because if you're an FM who understands that technology you were just talking about in that wine store, you aren't going to be the person that fixes it. But if you can understand what the system is and coordinate who fixes that with your connections and the like, then you're enormously valuable to that store. And it's going to show up in the bottom line, because the stores that keep that technology running and delivering that individualized experience, they're going to be the ones that succeed.
That's right. That's right. In this time of massive change, are there any trends that excite you? Whether it's as the CEO of ConnexFM or even as a consumer?
I do think that we're turning the corner on this retail apocalypse. I think the next generation of bricks and mortar real estate, it's exciting. And the integration of technology into smart facilities. And we need help from Washington, D.C. We need help from some of the traditional partners in the retail FM space, and the smart building or whatever that next thing. And Sid, you're great at coming up. We need to come up with that next term, right? Smart facilities is so 2015. We need to come up with what that next thing is. And then hopefully at ConnexFM, we can give our members the knowledge and the resources, the network to step into that and be more valuable than ever, and to deliver that individualized shopping experience. I think that's, and also too, kind of alongside that, when I mentioned about the energy issue, I mean, sustainability, energy efficiency, decarbonization is here. And it is a global, what do they call them? They used to call them mega trends. Wherever that trend is, I'm sure you saw it in Europe. We saw it at Eurosys, and it's coming our way if it isn't here. And it starts in certain states, even in the United States, works its way across. But if you're an FM or a supplier company and you see the ones that are growing that can embrace that trend and help retailers navigate those cross currents, then you are going to be enormously successful business-wise. And of course, don't discount the positives to the environment, the positives to the built environment.
That's
all
right.
those ancillary things flow downhill. But what I hope we can get to, and maybe this is just, a pie in the sky thing, but when the government, when the regulatory agencies work with industry, you can make huge progress on those sustainability goals. If it becomes an us versus them, that doesn't work. But I have found that if the government or regulatory agencies come to an industry and work with them on what are very achievable goals, you'll just gain leaps and bounds. As we're seeing even with reducing our carbon emissions in the built environment, which is huge. And even you're seeing to some degree in New York City with their local law that you have to reduce carbon emissions in large commercial buildings. It's been a little fits and starts about working with industry, but if we can get those two sides to at least maybe a standoff where we work together, I think we can have huge impact positively on the environment. Yeah, and also get some of those goals, but as well as, you want to keep people in business too. We got that. You can't have people going out of business going after some unachievable goals. So I'm excited about that. And as an association, we never have a lack of issues.
Yeah.
You don't want your association to live being fighting against something. You want to be for something. So that's what's exciting about smart facilities. You're for the next generation of facilities, or you're for elevating what an FM does, what our suppliers do. It's a little more refreshing to be fighting a more proactive battle, maybe a more positive message.
Yeah, and I think, as it pertains to some of the sustainability efforts that are taking place, it's more prevalent in Europe because they're actually seeing an impact on their day-to-day lives today, right? There's an energy crisis there. So they're more attuned to what businesses should be doing. I think the U.S. is catching up. I think the consumer of today wants their brands to do things in a more sustainable way. There's a lot of importance to ESG, but I think regulation is now catching up, right? And so now businesses, they can't just do greenwashing, right? They have to actually do what they're saying they're going to do. I think doing the right thing will also build loyalty. With regards to smart facilities, you're also right there. It's the future because, with all the folks that I've been talking to, AI and robotics and drones, autonomous vehicles, it's already here. Different brands are trying different things. It might not be ubiquitous, but different brands know that either they have to do it because they're trying to deal with the shortage of labor, or they want to augment what labor, they have and offer a better elevated experience to put the labor they do have in front of the consumer. Because ultimately, we're in the people business, right? If you think about hospitality specifically, you want to use the people that are working for you to be in front of the consumer and spend time there versus, operating a walk, right? But ultimately, to your point, the facility is changing. And I think the facilities manager, the VP of facilities, they have to think about what gets their team to be prepared for 3 years from now, right?
Yeah, and our board talks about it in some of our association efforts, but you see on the facility, the table stakes now are rising, right? More than clean, more than well lit, even more in some ways than environmentally friendly. It's the table stakes are raising. You have to raise your game. Well, who's going to do that? The person who manages that facility is well, they have to tell that story, but they are in such a critical position for the future. It's exciting, and it's a great career path. You would hope I would say nothing less from ConnexFM. I believe it.
That's right. That's right. Bill, in today's world where consumers are influenced by social media, by influencers, and so on and so forth, and then there's on top of that this additional, pressures to have design in your locations and your physical spaces to have an elevated experience. How does a brand stand out in a world like that? What does one do to actually really gain customer loyalty?
You have to have a top-level podcast, like you do. And I'll harken back again to the guy I mentioned who got ConnexFM in a way started down this path, Gary V. And I'm a firm believer in what he calls strategic organic content and what that looks like. And so one of the things we've done at ConnexFM, so way back in 2016, of course, you could say we had a website, had a newsletter, an email list, and even we're on social media. But what's happening now is you have to tailor your message to, in some ways, smaller and smaller groups. You have to give them what they want. You just can't do the mass email. You can't even do the mass podcast, right? It's segmenting. ConnexFM, so we exist so that we're connecting people. And then overnight, we're told you will not connect people in person for like a year. Yeah, we didn't know it was going to be a year. Whatever.
Right.
But so we had to find a way. And so one of the ways we did that, and we've been somewhat successful, is what we call the daily grind. We're going to finish 700 episodes of Daily Grind by the end of this year. And we started, it was a daily live show during the height of COVID. Now we've gone back to 3 times a week, and we record it kind of like what you do with this podcast. It's a 5 to 8 minute video interview show highlighting our members. We have different themes and the like, but behind that is continuing to connect our members when we started it, when they couldn't meet in person. And now even afterward is to do that strategic organic content where we can, let's just use smart facilities in a way, and our tech council. They are, you won't be shocked, but they are regular contributors to the daily grind. And hopefully we can take that daily grind and we segment it into people who've watched the daily grind, who are interested either in staying with the association, join the association, getting engaged in the association, or backwards, say you're in FM and you're on the daily grind and someone sees you talking about AI in your day-to-day life. And hopefully that message gets out to the people maybe you want to influence in that way. And I think we all have to, it's really tired to say you have to be on social media. You have to be on social media now. But again, talking about this, table stakes are risen. You have to be on social media. But what you do on social media and what you do online with programs like this, it continues the sophistication and the expectations of your viewers and of our listeners continues to rise. And it has to be tailored for something that they like. We have to segment our message dozens of different ways for the types of people that engage at ConnexFM. And our members have to do that in their day-to-day lives as well, too. But it's interesting times. The organizations, the businesses that are able to segment and find different ways to cut through the clutter are going to succeed. And that's ever changing. And you can't just do it with an email list anymore. You really can't even do it with a social media account anymore where you're just saying ConnexFM is the greatest. You better have strategic content that delivers something to the members they can't get elsewhere.
Yeah, that's 100% right. I mean, whether you're an organization or a tech company or a consumer brand, you can't just do a single-threaded play anymore. I mean, the consumer of today is educated. They are in different places. They're interacting with your brand in different ways, and you have to meet them where they are. In multi-site businesses, you know, once a consumer chooses to be loyal to your brand, and then you have 400 locations, they expect the same consistency across those 400 locations. You don't say, well, the so-and-so brand in Idaho is great, but the one in San Diego isn't, right? Like you kind of know what you expect from the brand, and you walk in, and that's the experience you have to deliver, and that same kind of experience transcends the physical and the digital. So I agree 100%. For the folks in our audience who might be across different functions like operations, facilities, construction, design, but are not yet, making an impact at the industry level, or are just starting out on their career, what advice would you give them, Bill? In how can they do more, gain more, and advance faster?
Yeah, well, you'll be shocked to hear, too, that I would support working in your industry association. I won't just say ConnexFM, but the IFMAs of the world, the ICSCs of the world. And what we sell at ConnexFM is, whether you're a supplier in FM, we're not what's called a contract show, a contract organization. We're going to show up and get business. You are building long-term relationships. You're building your network. And a world-class network is invaluable. You can't buy a world-class network. And in some ways, you're building that shelter for when it rains, when you need folks. That's how you build. The first time you contact someone shouldn't be when you have a problem, when you have an issue. So if you get involved, and then maybe this is more toward and I did this to some limited degree. The good part of being an attorney is that they force you into the bar association right away. You have to, you join the bar, so you are part of the association, so you start to build that network. In other industries, maybe not as much. The realtors do a great job of this, where you join the realtor association and then you're part of that network. You're building that network for good times and bad. So for, our supplier companies, if you want to do business with the biggest and best companies, they don't Google HVAC in Phoenix. They want a company that they know has a certain footprint and certain capability. Well, how do they find that out? Well, maybe some of it's online research, but they get to know you in a committee, in a council, at a trade show. When you're not selling to them, that's when they get to know you. Conversely, FMs, and we hear this from some, FMs most likely will change jobs throughout their career, right? When you jump from one job to another, you have a network of suppliers you've developed over time. Well, you aren't just going to say, all right, now I've plopped down in greater New York City and I need 100 new vendors to serve this new job I have. You aren't going to Google them, or if you do, you're going to be goofed over. But if you've been involved in an industry association for a significant period of time, councils, committees, events, you will know who to contact, and even that network, that person's network on top of it. And so it is a long-term play. It is not something that happens overnight. And in some ways, when you see them at ConnexFM, it's like you know it when you see it. Those who know how to do it, they almost don't want to give their secrets away because they build that network over time, and they do it without you realizing they're doing it, right? But I would say that's the biggest thing for a career is you have to build your network. You could go out and find industry people, I guess, on your own, cold calling, whatever. Or you can come to an industry event where everyone is there for a reason. Everyone is of like mind. Everyone's interested in facilities, or say technology or smart facilities. Go to the tech council. It makes it so much easier, and it's so valuable. Not a lot of people, even I would guess a lot of members in ConnexFM, our engagement depends on what we're doing. I mean, our national conference engagement is off the charts. It's high. But in our councils and committees, and you might not be, or you might be surprised at times, we have engagement challenges. We want to get people involved. And so that's a huge opportunity too. In some ways, you may not even be fighting past 15 people. You may be one or two people who's in front of a huge retailer, helping them navigate a challenge. And you know how that translates downstream. That's all good for you. So get involved with your, if it's not ConnexFM, we hope it is, but the ICSEs, the IFMAs of the world. Even in Europe, you've got Eurosys and retail, what was the Dusseldorf?
Retail Institute, right?
Retail Institute, but the biggest show that you went to.
Euroshop, yeah.
Euroshop, yeah, there you go. Go to those shows, learn, be part, be engaged in the discussions. It will mean business at a minimum. At a positive, you're going to become a much better FM or much better supplier company.
Agreed. Expand your network, expand your horizons. Those pay huge dividends for sure. Bill, what is ConnexFM looking forward to over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, great fun stuff on the horizon. So this summer, you're going to see us across North America. We're going to be up in Canada in June and then back in Canada in October. You can get all these events at ConnexFM.com. For the first time in a long time, we're going to be in Las Vegas, September 23rd through 25th. That's our mid-year conference. And then next spring, it's the 30th anniversary for Prism and ConnexFM. It will be a who's who who's been with ConnexFM. I can't say who our keynote's going to be yet, but I guarantee you it's going to be world-class. We've set the bar with Mike Rowe and Gary Vee and some others, but it's going to be awesome. The Technology Council, if you're at all interested in smart facilities and certainly how that's impacting our industry, I encourage you to get involved with our Tech Council. The Tech Council is formed a little bit different. Normally, we're very strict in who's in there, whether it's retail or supplier. We want folks who are interested and are technologically savvy to be part of the Tech Council. So, and in 2025, there will be a separate event. We're working on the details now, probably in the second half of 2025, that will focus specifically on multi-site FM smart facilities. So stay tuned for that.
There you go. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us. You and I have worked very closely over the years. It's been an absolute pleasure. For those that, want to look you up and find you or learn more about ConnexFM, where can they do that?
Yeah, well, I mentioned ConnexFM.com. Check out the Daily Grind. 3 times a week, you'll see us there. That's 3 times a week at ConnexFM.com. We also have what's called the Retail Grind that I co-host with Garrick Brown, a retail economist. And you can check us out on all the podcast platforms, Retail Grind. And Sid Shetty's going to be a future guest, I guarantee it, on the Retail Grind. And at Bill Yanek is my X handle. Got to say that right. It's now X, so you can check it out there. But go back to ConnexFM.com. You can't go wrong. You're going to see all the stuff I talked about there. And thank you for the invitation, Sid. It's been a pleasure. And I always leave my conversations with you in some way, certainly more educated, but then you always ask these questions that make my head hurt. And I have to go back and, but I love it. This is great.
No, you're too kind. You're too kind. I've always enjoyed our conversations as well, and thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure our audience would have enjoyed our conversation as well. Once again, thank you, and for all those in our audience, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you on the next episode of Elevating Brick and Mortar. Thanks for listening to my conversation with Bill Yanek, CEO of ConnexFM. We spoke about the rise of smart facilities, today's challenges with the skilled trades, and the importance of expanding one's network and horizons by getting more involved in trade associations and events. It's clear that brick and mortar is here to stay. But what is certain is that our industry needs to cater to the ever-changing demands of the customer. The way we stay ahead of this is to stay informed and be ready for change. With that, I'm your host, Sid Shetty, and I'll see you on the next episode of Elevating Brick and Mortar.
Operations and facilities teams across industries rely on ServiceChannel to ensure that their locations provide the best possible guest experience. Keep customers coming back by lowering downtime and raising your brand standards. Visit ServiceChannel.com to learn more.